Welcome back, my rogues. Today's question is people who had considered themselves incels, involuntary celibates, but have since had sex. How do you feel looking back at your previous self? Hope you enjoy. I never really considered myself an incel at the time, mostly because I'd never heard the phrase, but I was very incelly in high school. I was the type of person who would hold the door open and then wonder why girls weren't falling into my lap. Turns out high school me wasn't that attractive and nice. I isn't a personality. I fell very much into Chad's and Stacey's frame of mind for a while. A lot of things changed really, but mostly I just grew up. It's a super childish view of things and just doesn't take into account that the people around you well, people, if someone held a door open for you, you wouldn't throw yourself at them. It's about the maturity in relationships, but seriously, fuck high school me. Proper cunt. I am so glad I had my teenage years in the late 80s, early 90s before the internet, let alone social media. Back then I couldn't get a date, let alone a girlfriend. I was, to be fair, hardly a catch, suffering from persistent depressive disorder, form an orderly few ladies, and just generally having problems adapting. I was acknowledged to be a bit weird. I kind of accepted that it was my fault, which was bad for me short-term but probably good in me long-term for everyone concerned. Ultimately I had to sort myself out, but if I had had access to the sort of incel shite online around today, I fear I would have lapped it up with a spoon. A very large group of like-minded people telling me it isn't my fault. I can stop moping and start hating? Fantastic. Amen. I would have been able to celebrate my status instead of reflecting on it and changing it. I'm sure I do have been more than tempted. Social media has eroded, even destroyed, the concept of privacy. Gen X and before took for granted. For us to be an outsider, to be weird, was something you could do alone and grow out of if you wanted to, of course. For the later millennials and beyond, even in quarantine, there is no alone, no solitude to reflect. Everything seems to be out there looking for likes and other forms of validation my adult mid-40s brain can't comprehend. Incels are a form of social validation that could not really have existed before social media. To get a network like that going would have been logistically and technically impossible on a scale beyond small outsider cliques in secondary schools. Now they are a movement. I somewhat pity incels because, but for 20 or so years, I could have been one of them. I was a being of pure hatred. I always thought it was someone else's fault. Even though I have had sex since that time, I think it's important to know that having sex isn't what vindicates you. Inceldom is a state of mind which requires strength and sometimes outside guidance to overcome. One of my friends essentially gave me a proverbial slap to the face on the subject and told me exactly what to do and how to become a more better person. In conclusion, I look back with regret and sorrow for all the people I hurt and made uncomfortable, because I know there are many. Thanks so much for the positive response. I've received many questions about what my friend did to help me. My friend was someone I looked up to, so I suppose that is an influence, but basically the thing that I needed to understand was that the fact the girls who I was constantly being rejected by were just people living their best life, and me whining about it wouldn't change their preferences. So instead I worked on being happy without needing a GF and just letting it happen when it happens. There's always something to be said for talking to your friends, taking the time out of your day to listen to their troubles and offering advice. It really helped me, so I encourage you to do the same. You know, I don't know if this LL be buried, but I can actually share something valuable here. TLDR, it comes down to a lack of respect and ignorance to self-awareness. I did consider myself mostly an incel, maybe more of a nice guy, but to my core I believe that girls were only after the chads and douchebags. It was from the ages of 12-18, so a lot through my formative years. Here's the mindset: you've never had any awareness of the fact that girls don't indeed chase douchebags, because that's all you've ever looked for. Whenever you see a pretty girl who says she is in a relationship, you immediately assume that her boyfriend is a terrible person, though, not because he is, but because you yourself assume that you would just be so much better off with her than any other person. You don't want to see your own flaws, so you'll assume the worst of the guy. The truth is, it comes down to major insecurity issues and a lack of any male relationships. If you don't have many different male friends, you're going to assume that only the cocky guys get the girls. In reality, they are displaying charisma and confidence, something that is very attractive. Everyone knows this. It's a lack of awareness. It's easier to say that you yourself are too short, too ugly, too untalented, etc., than to admit that you have a crappy personality with little to no charisma. You won't find a happy, charming incel. If I could have gone back to myself and say, here's the deal. Girls don't look for one particular thing in a dude. They don't just want a tall dude, or a wide-jawed dude. They want someone to be comfortable around. They don't want you to praise them as some high being. They want to be treated with respect. But most importantly, they don't exist to have sex with you. They don't even exist to be your friend. They don't owe you anything no one does. Just because you like them, doesn't mean they have to like you. Don't try to sleep with girls by being their friend. Be grateful that someone sees any quality in your person for them to want to be around you at all. Be grateful that someone wants to be your friend. You are shallow and you only care about looks. You saying it's about personality is all bullshit. That's it. I was a young, angry kid. I'm glad I'm the man I am today. I've had a lot of confidence issues which went away as I grew older. I went through many edgy phases, and it took all of these mistakes to learn them. So I feel empathy for incels because they don't know any better. They don't know just how wrong they are, because admitting fault and self-improvement takes time and effort. Blaming and hating girls does not. Instead of hating girls, my only wish is that I started on self-improvement sooner. Edit. I am thankful that this struck a chord with a lot of people. Many are asking what self-improvement means in this context. I believe it is subjective, but to me, it meant physical, mental, and emotional. TLDR, hit the gym, get hobbies, make female friends for the sake of friendship, and do real kind things for the sake of goodness and kindness. More specifically, I started going to the gym after YouTubing a lot of which exercises are the most important. A very helpful community like our Ask Men is a wonderful community full of great advice. Whenever a post pops up asking how to gain confidence, the top answers are always hit the gym for good reason. So I did. I do have to say that losing upwards of 25 kilograms 55 pounds does change your own mental image. Suddenly, you feel like attractivity isn't as unattainable. Plus, you develop discipline in a much healthier lifestyle. That doesn't work for everyone. So I suggest investing time into a physical hobby, cooking, learning an instrument, hiking, volunteering, dog walking. The list is endless. Seek personal improvement in something. Set goals and strive for them. With mental improvement mostly towards women, it took a lot of self-reflection to get anywhere. It did help that I grew up with 4 sisters. So I saw how much each one of those handsome chads broke their hearts after being used. Suddenly, wanting to be alpha wasn't as appealing. Having sisters taught me how to behave around girls, but not everyone has that privilege. For that, I heavily recommend our Ask Women. It in a way humanizes women and girls as it gave me perspective on their insight. They're real people with real struggles. 2. Imagine just wanting to exist and to go on about your own thing. And some helpful guy comes along. H is thoughtful and mindful, might even be a little funny. Then out of nowhere, he wants to spend more time with you, intimately. However, you are just trying to figure this whole life thing out, and sinking a lot of time and energy into a relationship isn't something you're looking for right now. You don't want to lead him on, so you politely decline his courtship. Too bad, you're a slut now. Also, you're now too fat for him. And that pussy probably loose anyway from all those douchebags you've been fucking. Instead of those caring, nice guys, have a dick pic, bitch. That's a good case scenario. Bad worst case, they get violent and either stalk you or assault you. These stories are a dime a dozen both on our Ask Women and our Nice Guys. It also did help tremendously having female friends. The attraction may still be present, but friends you just want to exist with. Hanging out with them, seeing their struggles made me see that they didn't exist for my benefit. With emotional improvement, this is the toughest that is hard to come back from. You need to be quite mindful and self-aware. I was such an edgy kid in talking, dyeing my hair black and straightening it. Creeping people out purely for their reaction. Using a thesaurus wherever possible. Had the girls as sluts chasing tall chads mentality. I think doing good things for people as much as possible helped the most here. Whether it was being a pair of ears to vent to, helping family out with anything, filling in instrument roles for other people's performances in music class, it all taught me what real kindness was. Real kindness does not mean being a basic, civil human being. To me, it means going out of your way to help someone with the expectation of nothing in return. Suddenly, annoying girls by calling them pretty and pure, then getting mad when they don't compliment you back doesn't sound that kind anymore. Nice guys are actually unadjusted children currently incapable of self-reflection, rejection, and growth. All I can say is just focus on you. Don't focus on what you think people want out of you. I'm only 23, so I have a long way to go. Of course, I'm still human, I'm still capable of being an asshole. However, humans are also capable of many selfless acts. Feel empathy and sorry for the incel whose only explanation to their terrible perspective on Reality is blamed away on other people. I'm happy to talk to anyone further on self-improvement. My DMs are open. Oh god, high school me wore fedoras and believed my superior intellect and science-based social theories were too much for everyone, and that I was really a James Bond type with my knowledge of various fields. Turns out I was gay as fuck, but so deep in the closet my zip code was in Narnia. Not really that smart in anything but too ADHD to focus past basic knowledge of anything and in a desperate need of a new wardrobe. I'm good friends with a guy who used to be a part of a popular incel website, and he used to post on Reddit. That's actually how we met. He is still growing a lot as a person. He was incredibly angry. He blamed being ugly for his failure with women, and nothing anyone said could convince him that it wasn't that. It was that he thought that he would only be happy with a really hot girl. We hung out once and were talking about how he wanted to approach women out with us. We were at a very nice place in the neighborhood, had plenty of high-maintenance women. You know, the kind wearing expensive athleisure and who spent their entire lives dieting and doing spinning classes, expensive hair and nails, all that. Women who were really dedicated to looking good. There were also the girls that worked there, and a few other customers about our age. He literally only saw the hot ladies. He was upset they'd never date anyone like him, someone who has pretty much no career ambition, doesn't want to conform by dressing or eating like they do, etc. And the average women in there just weren't women to him. It was really dehumanizing, because I saw him as an equal, and although he was sort of my friend, he didn't see me as human as he saw the hot ladies in Lululemon. He eventually saw a therapist. Actually, a few therapists. It was mostly to tell people he'd done it, but he stuck with it. Saw a few until one worked, and he started working on himself. We texted, emailed, etc., hung out a few times, but honestly he wasn't working too hard on making friends, because he'd constantly say stuff that was belittling or mean just to hurt me or women in general. Because he could. He also had spent too much time in black pill subreddits, because he brought it up on the one time I invited him out with my trivia team a few months ago, before I had some major health issues and the pandemic kicked off. He got back in touch. He sent me a long email that was actually okay-ish. He had briefly dated a woman, they had slept together, and then he realized he still actually hated women in her too, because she wasn't living up to his fantasy, and that no one could. He realized he had a lot of conflicting ideas, that women shouldn't depend on men for money, but they also shouldn't be too career-focused, etc. Just a lot of bad stuff all rolled up into one. He had included a bunch of stuff I absolutely hated, like the fact that he still feels that women are aged past their prime and have cellulite. I basically didn't have a ton of energy to reply other than to tell him I hoped he kept working at it, and wasn't dating anyone else until he got over actively hating women. Edited to add, I definitely didn't think so many people would read and comment on this. First, the reason I reached out to him was that he described himself as around my age, living in my town, and I could see he was getting pretty radicalized, and he admitted he was seeing the attraction in a lot of the stuff that was just straight up fascist interest in trad wives, and white nationalism, supporting Christian Dominion type stuff despite being an atheist, etc. He also really internalized stuff from porn. He started watching it very early in life. Growing up he thought he'd be able to have women that looked like that, and they'd want sex that was like that, etc. That's what the email included. That he felt disappointed he wouldn't get the fantasy. He knew it was fucked up. He knew it was really bad. He just felt trapped into this gradual slide of his beliefs, and it was enabled by the internet, especially Reddit and YouTube. Second, edit you. I'm not going to respond to PMs to debate you about incels or incel-related topics. There are plenty of good resources out there. You need to seek them out. I was involuntarily celibate in that I wanted to have sexual relationships, but never met anyone interested. I didn't put any effort in, so it was kinda my fault. My lifestyle just didn't lend itself to meeting people, so it was hard. When I finally did get out there and start having relationships, it was like a weight lifted off my shoulders. I realized that I had previously felt like an incomplete person because of my inability to connect with anyone, and that was holding me back from other things in life. Like I thought nothing else was worth pursuing because I hadn't properly entered adulthood yet. I kinda wish I just got on with it and pursued my other interests a bit more. I don't know why I had to wait. Maybe it was depression relating to me being lonely. Edit, thinking about it a bit more. I put off dating for a long time because I thought I had to have my life in order first, which was why I waited until I hit some other life milestones. Once I hit those, I realized I had no excuse and finally started online dating. First one ghosted me, which hit me pretty hard after doing something positive for myself. Second one, we really hit it off. And that's when I turned into a different person. It's worth the effort. I suppose I was an incel from 2327 after leaving the military. I was depressed, underweight, socially isolated. I never got fat or super into gaming as is stereotypical. Just worked a lot, hung out with my dog, smoked way too much weed, and just sort of forgot how to interact with women, which was probably for the best. Most of my relationships prior to 23 were unhealthy at worst. Meaningless at best. Ending that era of my life was a long struggle that took concerted effort towards trying to be more positive and social. One big event was buying and learning to ride a motorcycle at 27 sort of shocked me out of my routine, opened my eyes to the fact that life was not a downhill slide from the adrenaline-filled days of 1822, that new experiences were waiting to be had. Eventually I met a woman that I just couldn't bear to have the usual flirt until I awkwardly distanced myself experience with. I forced myself to not to my mind wander when we talked. I powered through all anxiety to call and text her daily. I even eventually would do crazy stuff like get dressed up nice and go to dinner with her, not something I could have ever seen myself doing at one point. So I'm married now, still have some issues, but very happy, so I do say nothing to me. Just gotta live through it, kid. Finally my time to shine. Not sure if I should be proud of that. I found my first incel forum at 13. Even though DIDNT have that name, but the ideologies were the same. I was miserable back then. DIDNT have many friends. My grades were shit and I got bullied a lot. This made me spend most of my time inside playing video games and hating life. I hated everyone because all of my experiences with people were being bullied. I started being bullied at 4 and at DIDNT stopped until the middle of high school. The forums were full of people thinking the same. It made me feel secure, like I was right. I didn't have to walk the hard way to improve myself. They told me I could just let go. Nobody will ever love you, so why try? You were a social reject, so why try? So I stopped showering, stopped eating, stopped caring for myself. I let myself go because these groups told me no matter how hard you try, you will fail. I became jealous of people being more popular than me. Jealous of my sister because she was so pretty and accepted herself. She had a boyfriend. But all girls hated me. At the time I didn't see that what I have just showered girls wouldn't have been disgusted by me. I hated immigrants, gay people, women, handsome guys, everyone I saw as more accomplished than me. It was a hard time getting out of this mindset, but eventually I made it. Turned my grades around, made some friends and went to therapy. I even have a boyfriend now. Oh, the irony. When I see incels or people like that, I just can't hate them. They are in pain and struggling and need help. Depression is one hell of a beast and some people lash out in anger. So when I look back at my old self, I really just want to give him a hug and tell him everything is going to be okay. Edit sorry for any spelling or grammar mistakes. Do feel free to point them out. I'm dyslexic. I remember when I first found the incel community. It was actually a pretty helpful place. It was more of a support group for people who were unattractive, socially awkward, ECT, their WASNT, any of this nice guy, give sex bullshit. Everyone knew why they were involuntarily celibate, and just wanted to vent frustrations and get support. It was really good for my confidence. Then the toxic masculinity started to creep in and took right over. As everyone knows, I fell on the incel line of being not unattractive, but personality-wise, all I did was play video games. I didn't have anything interesting about my life. And so women just weren't interested in me. And I never put myself into situations to meet people. New job with great people. I started to do different things. Played hockey for the first time at 30. Joined the group for a couple of traveling tournaments where we got absolutely Vegas type. Plastered for weekends in different cities. Job is very much a hangout and chat type job, security. So talking with the women on the team on the regular starts removing the air of mystique I had built around them. Got my motorcycle license, and did a solo trip across the states from Canada to the Mexican border. And back that same year, started doing Tough Mudders, buying a season pass and traveling to any of the ones I could drive to. Then I got Tinder and just started going on dates. Had a few good, few bad, and then met my wife. All in all, I ultimately blame a World of Warcraft addiction that held me back in my early 20s to my late 20s and just missed out on those socially formative years. I had this condition called phimosis, which meant my foreskin didn't retract. So if I had ever tried to have sex, it would have been really painful and probably risked it. Because of that, I never allowed myself to get into situations that might get sexual. And even though I was purposely avoiding them, part of me still felt like there was nothing to avoid and no one was interested anyway. When I was 18, for the very first time a girl made it known she was interested in me. But TBH, even if I could have done anything, I wasn't interested in her anyway. 19. I use Tinder for some reason. Match a girl, start talking to her and it's awesome. We really like each other. But I could never arrange to meet up for fear of it turning sexual. And I was too embarrassed to tell anyone my circumstances. Inevitably, she gets bored of nothing happening. Moves on. I'm heartbroken. 20. Nothing really happened here. 21. Meet another girl on Tinder. Pretty much the same situation as when I was 19. We like each other, she gets bored, goes for someone else. I'm heartbroken. 23. Me and girl from work start getting close. I get into my first ever relationship with her. A month or so it turns sexual and I let her know what's going on. And that I need to fix it. She's cool with it. About a year after my initial doctor's appointment, I get a circumcision at 24. 2 months later we lose our virginities to each other. 25. Still with her now, been just over 2 years. I was laying in bed with my cat pretty much sprawled across my face and neck while I typed what I assumed would be a throwaway comment. I did not expect this. I used to be the creepy ass weirdo who, by the time I graduated, had asked every single girl out. I literally had no idea what I was doing wrong. I was practicing all the classic southern gentleman things that I was supposed to, yet having no luck. Think I'm lady, but only slightly less cringy. With wasn't until I got to college and went on a period of self-discovery that I knew the error of my ways. The first, and most important, concept that I learned was that women aren't sex dispensaries that you deposit nice coins into and get puss in return. They have to choose you. I still kept doing nice things for girls because that's the way I was raised. But I removed my expectations for getting anything in return. The second concept was making myself attractive, and it was a lot easier than I thought it would be. A nice basic buzz cut suddenly turned my oily mop of hair into a clean, presentable style. Went clean shaven on facial hair too, because all I could grow was a piddly pubic hair looking ass beard. Got a benzoyl peroxide solution to start working on the acne. Marching band was my form of exercise to stay fit and avoid the freshman 15. It's amazing how the problems we create for ourselves can get in our own way. I think I was maybe just a late bloomer. I had lots of female friends and was a bit geeky before it was cool. When I went to uni I realized that rejection wasn't as bad if I could laugh about it with my mates. After, when I lost my V, it wasn't the big deal I thought it would be. Once that barrier was broken though, I really came into my own and never looked back. Never considered myself an incel. Wasn't a word that was commonly used, just an ugly, socially inept, horny teenage boy who girls didn't like. Now I'm an ugly, socially inept adult with a personality, and that seems to be working well so far. I didn't lose my V card until I was like 20, maybe 21. University was a blur. I used to not hate women, but just wouldn't really bother with the pursuit because in my mind, ID already summed up the result: rejection. I was also, like, super fucking thirsty, which nobody ever wants, and yeah, it was a bad look all around. Eventually became zero-e depressed. Worked through some things with hallucinogens. Yada yada yada, and now here I am. A little wiser and a little less annoying a person. TL. Doctor, I matured and old me was a dickhead. Don't do drugs. YNMV. Still a virgin, but I used to call myself incel a couple years ago because I only knew it meant involuntary celibate. I didn't know any of the stuff about the black pill and the rampant misogyny. As soon as I actually discovered what it meant, I stopped and felt ashamed. Also, I did have a phase in high school during which I did believe some incelish stuff, but I just didn't have enough confidence to ever talk to someone I was interested in. So I never said any of the stuff out loud anywhere. I was a virgin at 2021 but wanted to have sex sooner. There was some bitterness in my heart towards women. I got on with working, playing rugby and not being fat ass, and it turned around. Learned to have a conversation, not just trying to chat someone up or show the world how super I was. Married, 2 children, doing okay. Edit more upvotes than all of my redditing combined so far. Thanks for all the comments, I did my best to reply. Funny to think this gained some traction when I just chucked it out there before bed. Not a dude, or an incel. I know, but I have intimate knowledge to the creation of one. So I dated this dude that was probably a bit autistic, no issue on the surface. I get that his behaviors were bizarre. I was coming out of a highly abusive relationship, only other one I'd ever had, so I saw him as quirky, rather than someone who clearly needed help. He wasn't good with women because he would get super focused on topics and use the same jokes phrases over and over, which didn't bother me. Him pretty chill. Well, we dated a couple years and his best friend's wife left him. The dude started going to McTow and shit, telling my boyfriend things like, virgins are the way to go and to get a woman young. Like 18, we were in our 30s. Well, my boyfriend listens to this and starts acting weirder. He tries to veto my clothing when we go out. Tells me I'm less valuable since I've had kids. Pulls a gun on me because I didn't listen. Insists I quit my job so I can take care of him. And that's just a few. Of course, him unintentionally plotting my escape. I make friends outside the house, ones that he follows me to without telling, to make sure no dudes try anything with you. I meet another man. We become good friends. H is a cool guy and just lets me talk sometimes. The boyfriend decides him cheating. Says we're going to have an open relationship, okay cool. I fuck this dude friend. He goes to a party but doesn't bring anyone home and no one wants to be around him too much because his insult shit. He finds out I fucked this guy and loses mine. He throws a fit, breaks a bunch of my stuff, threatens to kill me, and I flee to my new friend. He starts saying I was a cheating slut and he did nothing wrong, that he was devoted and took care of me, etc. He still hasn't found anyone and is lonely and bitchy. I ain't even mad though, because the support and kindness my friend gave me led to us getting married last year. So yeah, answers I guess. I was raised by incredibly cruel people. My aunt and grandmother, they had me absolutely convinced that I was very ugly, pathetic, and just a total loser. They even hinted that I'd be better off gay, as if it's a choice because I didn't have a shot with women. They also made me feel that as an immigrant I was considered weird and strange and women would consider me less of a catch because I was a foreigner. Since I believed all of that, I had a real resentment toward women, and like many young people I protected my pain with anger. Eventually I discovered that I was not ugly at all and in fact was considered quite attractive by many, which I never fully could wrap my head around. And guess what? Turns out women like guys with exotic accents and viewed my foreignness as interesting and even exciting. I'm just glad I realized all of that before I had become too entrenched in my anger or wasted too much time. I looked back and realized how many times girls showed an interest in me and I didn't notice, or I self-sabotaged without realizing what I was doing. I eventually learned to get out of my own way, but I'm still working on not pushing away people, because I'm scared if I don't reject him they will reject me, kind of thing. I had a sign of self-induced loathing in my early 20s that had me in the same mindset as incels, minus the whole urge to kill and harass. But I blamed women for them not wanting to talk to me, for rejecting me. I believed someone up above talked about maturity and who they were in high school. I, too, was a D-bag, decent-looking guy but shit person. Shallow is a perfect adjective for my high school self. That whole viewpoint or self-importance carried into my early 20s and it didn't work out well. It wasn't until I was 2,728 and started getting into philosophy while getting stoned off my ass. Because I was escaping my problems, philosophy changed me. It made me self-reflect and forced me to be honest with myself, to hold myself accountable and also to forgive myself for all the mistakes I have made and to realize I have the power to change and improve myself. That's when my insult women blaming ended. I'm glad I survived that period of my life. I think a lot of what goes on is how relationships in our society are portrayed. Speaking for myself, a guy that grew up in the 90s, it always seemed that every movie the woman was the one needing saving and the way to a woman's heart was to be a gentleman. This whimsical fairy tale taught to us at an early age sets people up to false expectations of both roles in a relationship. There really is no teaching about how hard relationships are and that no relationship should be the reason you are happy. If I was taught that growing up, maybe things would have been different for me. But that was a big personal problem for me. Trying to validate my happiness through a relationship left me wide open to get taken advantage of and pushed further into that toxic mindset. But, looking back, I'm glad I went through it. I finally found the love I've always wanted and I couldn't be happier. My relationships feel more real now and that I have a new realization and perspective on my relationships. I definitely look at women a lot differently now and have made multiple reach outs to some classmates from high school to apologize for how much of a pig I was. Cunt is the perfect high school nickname for me, but the AINCEL mentality seems to come from the self-hatred denial of one's own faults flaws. Women are not sexual objects. You don't deserve their attention. They're human beings and deserve that respect. Once those moronic INCELs realize they wasted the best parts of their lives blaming others for their own failures instead of making changes that will be their greatest regret in life. Knowing that all along, they had the power to change their situation. P.S. If you made it this far, wow, I'm impressed. Thanks for taking the time reading my comment. If anyone wants to chat, DM me. I know during these troubling times, lack of connection, social interactions can strain mental health. If you want someone to talk to or just vent to, hit me up. I have nothing better to do but chat it up and make friends. Alright, cheers, edit. Holy shit. Thank you, kind stranger, for the gold. My first gold. Unreal.
Hope you liked this video. Stay frosty, my rebels.